The reason I'm doing this is not because I'm an expert, because I am so not. I am an experienced person, and that's a little bit different. If I was better at math and science, I would be an expert meteorologist, but that didn't happen. So I got mine all by the seat of my pants. I've been full-timing for 1 year and 4 months, and I think the biggest thing I took away from it was an absolute horror of how many people don't understand at the kind of vulnerability we have when we're on the road to the weather. And the second thing that appalled me was how many people don't even know about weather radios, because they will save your life. And so I try not to harp, but I'm gonna harp on that one because it's really important. Everybody's like, oh, I got the apps. Yeah, that's good. That's a good supplement. It is not a replacement, and I'll be explaining why. So let's just get into it. Okay, so as nomads, we are basically, I don't care if you're in a van, an Class A, I don't care what you're in, we are all in little metal boxes on wheels. Those are our homes, however often we're in them. And that makes us really prime candidates for especially wind events, which would be rollovers and being picked up and thrown, both of which are rather unpleasant ways to die. The other thing is that the walls of our homes are usually not much more than 2 inches of very thin fiberglass or aluminum with maybe a little bit of foam in between for insulation. Or if you're in a van, steel, which makes you lucky. None of these are going to protect us if we are in anything more than basically about 70, 75 mile an hour winds, which by the way is a Category 1 hurricane strength. Even in an EF2 tornado strength winds, any hard object, once airborne, becomes a deadly missile. Most deaths that occur from tornado or severe thunderstorm winds are from people either getting blunt force trauma to the head or being pierced by something. Again, neither are very pleasant ways to either die or linger for a while. And when I talk about any hard object, I don't just mean like stuff that you think is hard. I mean like a piece of straw could go through your eye and kill you. And they do. So please, what I'm doing today, I know it sounds like, oh, hyper and everything, but the truth is you only have to be in one of these once to understand the reality of how deadly these things are. So what I'm hoping to do today is give you not fear about it, but information, because information is the enemy of fear. If you understand it, you can stay away from it. And that's really what you need to do as a nomad. If you end up, and it will happen to you sometime, that you'll end up in severe weather, at least I'm going to give you some ideas about the best ways to protect yourself if you find that happening. So a big problem for those of us who are not necessarily boondockers but like to go to RV campgrounds is that we basically, in most RV campgrounds, do not have access to adequate shelters. I think it's the dirty little secret of RV campgrounds. Some of them do, and God love the people that are trying hard, but even if they have an adequate strength shelter, it's usually not adequate space for everyone who's there at the time. So it's kind of a double whammy. And that means that we're kind of on our own, no matter where we are. Obviously, if you're boondocking, you're always on your own. And tornadoes aren't the only problem. There's also straight line winds, microbursts, and of course tropical storm force winds and blizzards, which we will talk about. You've probably all heard weathermen say that the most dangerous place to be in a tornado is a mobile home park, like manufactured housing, and I beg to differ. I think it's to be in an RV park, because you really don't even have a way to escape. They're very crowded. Can you just imagine everybody trying to get out of there at the same time? It's a bad scene. So you need to be, as with everything that will keep you safe, as a nomad, you need to have situational awareness, and that's the most important thing you can do to protect yourself is, like, don't live on planet Oblivia during storm season, okay? And the other thing that's important for us to remember is that when we're on the road as nomads, we tend to congregate and go right in the places where the weather can potentially be the worst, right at the time of the year when it can get the worst of all. So that's something we need to be paying attention to. The other thing about being in an RV campground that's dangerous is the fact that, and I found this out with personal experience, last year I traveled down in Dixie Alley for quite a bit last spring, which is exactly when you don't really want to be there if you want to avoid severe weather. And I would always ask, the first thing when I came in, do you have a storm shelter? Where is it? how many can it hold, what's it made of, and 9 times out of 10, the person at the gate could not tell me the answer to any of those questions. And so if they don't have the info, they can't pass it on to us. And so you better bet that as soon as I got myself settled in, I went up to the office and found out, because I've been in these, I chase these storms, I know what they can do. So let's talk a little bit about the severe prone areas of the continental United States. Just FYI, tornadoes hit every single state of the Union, including Alaska and Hawaii. Don't make any mistake about that. You can always be hit by a tornado. Some really get a lot more than others, but it's not impossible anywhere. But typically things ramp up to their most intense from about mid-February through the end of May. So this includes southern and central Texas, Louisiana, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, and the Carolinas. These triple threat states, I call them that because not only can you get severe weather there, you can also get intense heat waves, which I got last year when I was down there, and of course they're prime landfalling areas for Atlantic hurricane basin storms. And how many of you have been to those states? Yeah, if you've been there, you have been vulnerable to this. The tornado alley phenomenon happens because from about that time in mid-April through the end of June or middle of June, westerly winds sweep down off the Rockies, and they're bringing that cool, dry air off the mountains. And cool air is heavier. It will sink. That's what it wants to do. Meanwhile, right about that time, the Gulf of Mexico starts to heat up, and there's very humid, big swaths of air that come up off of there. And where those two hit is where everything tends to flare up. In many storms in Tornado Alley, you get the very clear phenomena called the dry line. And the dry line is where that cool air knocks into the warm, wet air. And warm air wants to rise. So when you have one big volume of air that wants to push down, which is the cold, and the other air that wants to push up, you've got stuff going like this. And that tends to make things rotate on a horizontal basis. That's usually a severe thunderstorm, when it's just that. When does it go tornadic? It goes tornadic when there are winds very far aloft, usually the jet stream, that's sometimes moving from 200 to 400 miles an hour, faster than most airliners do. And that'll come across really fast. So imagine this. Have your hands together and imagine you've got a pencil in there and you're rolling it like this. Okay, so that pencil actually represents kind of a tube of air that's rotating horizontally. When you get that shear that comes across the top of the storm, when that horizontal tube is down here and you've got that uprushing wind from the base down at the surface, it'll happen in the center of a thunderstorm where you get these really intense columns of rotating air called a mesocyclone. And that mesocyclone comes up, and here's that rotating horizontal tube of air, and this thing hits it and knocks it this way. Now guess what it is? It has a good potential to become a tornado because it's still rotating this way. Now, we don't know still exactly how tornadoes form, insofar as we don't understand why certain storms go tornadic and certain ones don't. How many of you have ever complained to somebody, oh my God, it must be great to be a weather person, you can be wrong 80% of the time and still keep your job? How many of you have said something along those lines? Okay, let me tell you something. What's amazing is not how often they get it wrong. The fact is they actually are right 80% of the time. And if you had any idea of the 3.5 squillion factors that go into making a weather system all at the same time, it's really amazing they're right as often as they are. So even if you're mad at the weather, please don't be mad at the weather people. They really want to help you, they want to make you safe, they care about you, and they're doing a really good job as much as they're allowed to. I will tell you that if they were in Europe, they would have a lot better time of it because our government has all but abandoned the meteorological community by not funding them well enough to give them modern tools. So how many of you have ever heard of computer weather models? Okay, don't listen to those, okay? They do have good information. The thing is that when your meteorologist comes up with forecasts, they're putting together 24 to 27 of those, and they're taking inputs from each one. But if you absolutely have to listen to a model and believe it, listen to the Euro, because the NAM, the North American model, sucks. It's just the way it's funded right now. The third place I want to talk to you about geographically is the southwest monsoon season. I bet you've all experienced at least some of that. Typically, this occurs between July and mid-September in Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, southern Colorado, and East Texas. So through much milder than the monsoons that hit like tropical areas of the world like Pakistan, this one does still include a pattern of pronounced increase in thunderstorms and very heavy rainfall over a large area. And this does also include northwestern Mexico. So during the monsoon, thunderstorms are fueled by daytime or what's called diurnal heating. And these build up during the day until they explode late afternoon into early evening. So I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but the basic witching hour for severe storms to start initiating is between 4 and 7 p.m. local time. You will generally, if you're gonna get storms earlier in the day, they're storms that are moving through from another system. But the ones that are gonna pop up where you are generally gonna initiate between 4 and 5 and stay pretty nasty until at least 7. Actually, those are the ones you like because you can see them. The ones you don't like are the ones that come after dark. Those are scary, and I don't care if you're in wheels or in sticks and bricks, those are scary. I personally would rather be on wheels because I know I can get away from them. I don't want to sit in my house waiting for them to hit because I've been there, I've done that, and I don't ever want to do that again. One of the handouts that you can download from the URL I'm going to give you at the end of this is information about how to join Skywarn. So we're going to talk about specific details of this. So one of the things to do is to know what kind of clouds to watch for. First thing I wanted to give you is a really good resource, and it's really cheap. This book is $8.95. It's called The Weather Wizard's Cloud Book. Write it down. This is not in the handout. The Weather Wizard's Cloud Book. This isn't even on the website yet, but it will be very, very soon. This is a unique way to predict the weather accurately and easy by reading the clouds, and it's by a guy named Louis Rubin, R-U-B-I-N. This will not only tell you about severe weather clouds, but this will tell you how to look at clouds and know what's coming. How many of you are familiar with the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma? How many of you go to look at the outlooks from the SPC? Please do that, okay? This is spc.gov, and then it'll be, once you go there, there'll be a thing along the side, and then you want to hit the thing that says Convective Outlooks. And you'll see the map that tells you where the storms are going to be. That's the part that's helpful. The part that is unhelpful is the dumb, lame nomenclature that they've given these threat levels. Just so you know, they're aware that they're dumb and lame and they're trying to fix them. But for now, I'm going to describe to you what they say and what they really mean. So you're going to have, there's 6 different categories. They don't really even consider the first one a category. It's just called thunderstorms or general. On the map, it's light green. All that says is that somewhere in this area, some kind of thunderstorm could happen, probably just maybe garden variety or a little stronger. It just really means nothing severe is going to happen. Then their first category that they recognize is called marginal. That's dark green. Marginal. It kind of sounds pretty accurate. It means isolated severe thunderstorms are possible but not probable. Then we go into slight. This is where it turns yellow. When you see yellow on this map, you need to start paying attention, because this means scattered severe storms are possible. They will be short-lived and or not widespread. They will, however, have some isolated intense storms, and that's the ones that could hit you. Their third level is called enhanced. Now, this sounds maybe a little like threatening, but I think most people wouldn't feel really scared from that, and this is one where you should really kind of be concerned. If you're in an enhanced area, which is orange, numerous severe storms are possible. They will be more persistent, which means they'll last a long time, and they'll be more widespread, and a few will be intense. When you get into moderate, which is red, it's not moderate. This is serious. Get the heck out of there. Don't be anywhere near a red zone on the convective outlook map. This means widespread severe storms are likely. They will be long-lived, they will be very intense, and they will be widespread. And then the real killer that you will see is the magenta or bright pink area. That's where they actually call it high. And this one, what it should be like, seriously, you so rarely see it that what they should say is, someone's gonna die here today, because that almost always happens. So The magenta means widespread severe storms are expected, long-lived, very widespread, and very, very intense. So that's, you see what I mean? Like their naming doesn't really make it sound as serious as it is. And this is because they don't trust us not to panic. Do you realize they weren't even allowed to talk about tornadoes in a weather forecast until 1955 because they thought we would all run screaming? So let's talk then about how the storms turned violent. We kind of talked about how they tipped up and all that stuff. The one thing I want you to think about is if you are out in a storm and you know that it's there and you can see it, but there's maybe several all around you, stand very still, and if you want, lick your palm, stand it up, and turn your hand around until you feel the wind hitting you directly. If that wind is warm, that storm's heading towards you. If that wind is cold, you're on the back end of it and you're probably okay because it's blowing. That's called rear flank downdraft. It comes out of the back of a storm. And another thing that I want you to pay attention to is how to read Doppler radar. How many of you have weather apps on your phone? Okay, that makes me feel good. The rest of you, get them now. So in general, Doppler radar for severe thunderstorms uses a light blue color for kind of lightish rain, green for just regular rain, and then with intensities growing the same that we just talked about, yellow, orange, red, magenta. If you see pink or magenta on Doppler, you are looking at a very intense supercell, and there are winds in there that are very possibly being caused by a tornado because nothing else goes that fast. If you are looking on Doppler and you see a blob of pink with a black dot in the middle, that black dot is a debris cloud. Things are being destroyed and people are probably dying. Don't let yourself be one of them. That means those storms are usually EF4 or EF5, and you're talking about, these can be up to like 265 miles an hour wind. I guarantee you your rig will not stand that.